Peter, the proposal, and you broke the news last Saturday night. I'm just sitting around minding my own business, checking Twitter, and I see a series of tweets from Peter King. It's like, this looks interesting. It's like, oh, what? I got to actually work now on a Saturday night. Thanks for nothing, Peter. But it was a great scoop, and it was a good heads up for what was coming. And, the historical piece of this is back in March, April time frame, the league had toyed with the idea of incentivizing the team that does the hiring. That got some significant pushback. Folks like Tony Dungy said, why are we rewarding teams for doing the right thing? The incentive now is created to move away from the long-held system of hiring based on who you know and who you're related to, and incentivizing diversity and inclusion in the lower levels so people have a chance to show what they can do, so they have a chance to develop. And then if they leave, that's when you get the reward for being patient and inclusive and breaking away from the nepotism and cronyism that has been part of the hiring process for decades.
Yeah, Mike, I don't think this, the new rule in and of itself is going to motivate, let's say, the New York Jets to hire Eric Bieniemy, because the Jets are saying, well, there's nothing in it for us. Why should we care about the Chiefs getting 2 third-round picks because they developed Eric Bieniemy? This is more, as somebody in the league told me yesterday, this is more, do you really believe in career advancement on your staff? Do you want to hold guys back, and not sort of let them show off? Or do you really believe in what is best for the individuals on your coaching staff as well as what's best for your team? If you believe in what's best for the coaches on your team, then what you'll do is you will allow them to show how good they are. You'll allow Eric Bieniemy to get more and more responsibility. If you're Bruce Arians, you will put more on Byron Leftwich's plate, let's just say, as the offensive coordinator. And so those are the ways that this rule could help teams, because eventually, if Bruce Arians helps Byron Leftwich get a head coaching job, Bruce Arians says, hey, we got a couple more third-round picks this year. That's going to help us. But I think it's more of the cumulative effect, as Troy Vincent talked to me about the other day. And the cumulative effect meaning that in conjunction with the new Rooney Rule rules this year, which say that every team has to interview 2 minority candidates for a head coaching job, every team has to interview at least 1 minority candidate for a coordinator job. That is really helped by the NFL to loosen the logjam.
It is an amazing dynamic in the National Football League, and it's unavoidable that you have to create, develop, and enhance the skills of your apprentices, knowing full well that they may become your arch rivals before too long. In a lot of other businesses, especially smaller businesses, the people in charge, they're not going to show some potential future competitor how it's done, right? You don't want them setting up shop across the street from you, even as something as simple as a bakery. Right. We're not showing you what our secrets are. You're going to set up a bakery across the street. In the NFL, that's how it works. Hey, our best case scenario is to have a staff full of guys who are going to go throughout the league and create hell for us and maybe get us fired eventually because they're so good and we've helped get them there. And, that's just part of the reality of the sport. And this specific aspect of it does incentivize coaches to ensure that the minority candidates have the same opportunities as the son of the coach, as the person who knows this person, who knows that person, who gets their opportunity that way. I think opening the doors on the front end and allowing nature to take its course and allowing people on their own merit to rise to the levels where they become noticed by other teams and may get hired as head coaches, that's the way to fix this once and for all, because the pipeline is always pointed to as the problem. Well, why hasn't it changed? Why aren't there more minority coaches? Well, who are they? Who are we going to hire? All the offensive coordinators are white, and Eric Bieniemy's still waiting. But I think this will fill more of those lower positions with minority candidates. And that question of where are all the best minority candidates to be head coaches, that won't be a question anymore.
Here's the biggest thing that I got, Mike, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Okay, so in the wake of me reporting this on Saturday night, I got a wave of arguments on Twitter and to the email, to emailing me at my column. And they basically said, well, wait a second. Why would, and I'll use the Jets as an example again, why would the Jets incentivize and help, let's say, for instance, the New England Patriots by giving them 2 third-round picks to sign Josh McDaniels as their next head coach? Or why would they help the Kansas City Chiefs, by giving them 2 third-round picks? That's just going to hurt the Jets in the long run. And I say, I think that's crazy. Because let's say, for instance, and we'll use Josh McDaniels as an example, okay? Let's say that the New York Jets take Bill Belichick's guy who handles everything about the offense, and I mean everything, okay? And Bill, basically, he's defense, special teams guy who obviously has a lot to say about the offense, but not on a practice-by-practice basis. So now, don't you think that in taking Josh McDaniels away from the New England Patriots, and making them have to break in a new guy after all these years as McDaniels being the guy running the total show on offense, that's going to hurt the Patriots. So I think there's that. And I also think there's this. Andy Reid told me this, this is 3 or 4 years ago. We were having a conversation about head coaches. He goes, look, you don't worry about all the stuff about whether you're hurting your own team, you're helping another team. Your job when you're hiring a head coach is only to get the best guy for that job. Everything else is going to take care of itself.
But I think you have identified one of the potential unintended consequences, and Sims and I talked about this earlier in the week. The idea that if you're in the same division, let's say the Raiders were looking for a coach after this season, and we know that they won't be, but let's say that they were, and they're considering the candidates, and they consider Eric Bieniemy, and somebody says, well, now, wait a minute, if we take Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid's going to get a couple of compensatory third-round draft picks. Well, he's going to get him anyway because somebody's going to hire the guy. So we may as well take him. Let's take him away from Andy Reid, make us better, make him worse. He's going to get those picks anyway. Let's be the one instead of somebody from the NFC or one of the other AFC divisions. So I don't see that being a problem if you truly want the candidate and if the sense is that the candidate is going to get hired. Now, let me spread it out a little more broadly, because this is an unintended consequence that can cause significant issues for all NFL teams. If all of a sudden the brakes are slammed on hiring any minority head coach because nobody wants extra third-round picks to be given to anyone, and it becomes an issue not of race or anything, but we don't want the Chiefs getting extra third-round picks. We'll find a coach somewhere else. And it almost becomes a collusive, like a subtle, unspoken, don't hire any minority coaches because we don't want anybody getting extra third-round picks. I hope to hell that doesn't happen. And here's the thing. Peter. Let me just finish this. Let me finish this. If it does happen, if that does occur, that will be the proverbial Rubicon that leads to the litigation that should have been filed against the NFL teams 20 years ago. So they better not do it, because this, in a certain brilliant sort of way, is a trap. And if you stop hiring minority coaches because you just collectively don't want teams to get extra third-round picks, the whole house is going to cave in on the NFL.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. But, Mike, I guess I'd make this point. Let's say the Atlanta Falcons decide that Eric Bieniemy is their guy, and they go hard after him and they hire him. The Atlanta Falcons play the Kansas City Chiefs once every 4 years. And the Atlanta Falcons, the only way they're impacted by how good the Kansas City Chiefs get. And remember, this isn't the 18th pick in the draft. This is the 100th pick in the draft. So let's say they get picks 100 and 101, let's just say, okay? And I'm not in any way minimizing how good those picks are or what they might become or anything like that. But let's just be frank about what the 100 and the 101st picks in the draft are. And that is, to me, if you look at history, probably a 50% chance of those guys becoming starting players. So let's just say one of them becomes, say, McCole Hardman. Okay? Hey, that's a really good player. That's a good contributing player for your team, and good for you. But it isn't like giving a team the 100 and the 101st pick in the draft for a team you're going to play once every 4 years. It's not like it's going to ruin the balance of power either in football or with you versus them. I think it's a really specious argument.
I don't disagree with that, but, the attitude that some have toward unused draft picks, it's the scratch-off lottery ticket mentality.
Yeah.
That you don't know what's under that metallic acrylic paint until you scratch. That pick could be Tom Brady, who was 199. Just nobody knows. And we know that, just like with scratch-off lottery tickets, not that I have purchased any recently, but you know what? Kind of sitting here thinking about it, maybe I'd like to. You know that it's going to be your trash can overflowing with losers. Still, that one that you haven't scratched off yet could be the one. And I think too many scouts and coaches view draft picks that way. I just, for the NFL's sake, I hope that there isn't this kind of old school, we don't want anyone getting extra draft picks. We don't like that. We don't want third-round draft picks. We're just not going to hire a minority coach. And that's going to be the Colin Kaepernick-y kind of no one ever says it, it just never happens mood that sets in. If that occurs, they're going to have a big problem. That's all I have to say.
One other thing about that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Mike, it might be Tom Brady. It also might be T. Martin or Spurgeon Wynn or Chris Redmond. So I mean, to think that for everybody to say, well, you never know, it could be Tom Brady. Yes, you never know. There could be an earthquake in my apartment right now and we all could die. I mean, it's silly. It's silly. Hire the best guy for the job, period.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.